Right, welcome, Amanda Thebe. How you doing?
Not bad. You got me up early for this one, though.
I know, sorry about that. That damn time difference. So we've got a great one today because I'm really looking forward to this. I did a previous podcast with a guy talking about TRT and male hormones, etc. So this is going to be a great one to do, just to give us a nice little balance there. So would you like to do us a little intro, just to to fill us in on where you are and how you got here?
Yeah. Why am I the person talking about menopause? I never put that on my to-do list, my bucket list. So I'm from the northeast of England, but I'm calling in from Canada today. I've been here like 20 years now. And I've been in the industry probably as long as you, like now it's like 30 years, on and off, I have probably, like most trainers who listen to this, subspecialties in everything.
Yeah.
I've done post natal. I've worked with seniors. I've worked with pro athletes. When I was in Houston, I worked with the Houston Rockets, which is a really cool experience for me. So I've had a full gamut of different clientele, and obviously worked with the general population too, and felt like I was always like just a good person in the industry that wasn't smug and wasn't like, trying to be somebody I wasn't, but I was relatable, and people, looked up to me in a way that, I think she knows what she's talking about, that type of thing. And
That's nice.
yeah, I know, and it was what I wanted, and it felt good. And then when I was 42, I just started to feel really unwell, like to the point where my quality of life suffered, and I just couldn't do the things I used to do, and I couldn't work out what was going on. And we can talk about the symptoms and stuff later, but ultimately I was unwell for about 2 years, and I was in the Canadian healthcare system, which at the time was quite robust. It's a bit like the NHS right now, unfortunately, following COVID.
Yeah.
But I saw multiple specialists, from neurologists to throat doctors. I had all of these tests like MRI scans, etc., etc. It cost the healthcare system a fortune. And it was when I went to a gynecologist 2 years later, he said, the things that you're experiencing are very typical of perimenopause, and I can help you. I see this every day, day in and day out. And I just was sat there going, what are you talking about? Like, I'm sat there, like, this is now 10 years ago, essentially, and I'm going, isn't menopause for like old women? And don't you stop getting your period? And I'm not supposed to get hot flashes? I had all of those like stereotype ideas in my mind. And anyway, so I left his meeting like relieved that nothing was seriously wrong, because I'd had 2 years, and I was in a deep depression as well, because when you're in chronic pain all the time, like, and you don't know what's going on, it obviously impacts your mental well-being as well. And then I was pissed. Then I was like pissed off, I should say. Like, I've become all Canadian. Sorry,
I'm
I
glad
was
you cleared
really
that
pissed
up.
off.
That's a whole different podcast.
Oh God. And then I walked down the street, and there was like I was going to say like a trash can, but a rubbish bin, and I kicked it, and I was like pissed off, and I was like kicking this rubbish bin thinking, why the fuck didn't I know about this? Like, I'm somebody who's supposed to have a wealth of knowledge, and I've made it like my mission to sort of really stay on top of like the latest findings and how the human physiology works. And this was a huge knowledge gap for me. And then I was like, well, if it's a knowledge gap for me, then it's a knowledge gap for most women. So I just wrote this article years ago, and it sort of went viral for me. It was like a couple of tens of thousands of people downloaded it. And it was just like, this is the shit that nobody ever tells you about perimenopause. And then I slipped down this perimenopause rabbit hole, and just being the person I am, became very curious and reached out to all of the experts, and then came out the other side with a huge community of women. I think I'm up to like 80,000 women now across platforms.
Oh, wow.
I wrote a book about it, which is it's a sort of like your best mate's guide to menopause, because it's written exactly how I speak, but it's I did it in liaison with all of the medical professionals, and it's evidence-based, right? There's nothing sensational in there. It's just, this is what happened, and why don't we talk about it? Why don't we know about it? And so that was where I came from. And now in the UK, I see this conversation is elevated now. Women are talking about it all the time. It's on the BBC. We've got doctors talking about it. So we're making progress, right? But there's still a huge struggle. There's still a lack of knowledge. And a recent survey done here in Canada showed that 6 out of 10 women didn't know that a whole host of symptoms that they were experiencing had anything to do with menopause at all. So we've still got work to do.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an interest of mine because my wife suffered from early onset at 38. So she started developing these symptoms and was very confused, much like you were by the sound of it, and didn't really know. I mean, and there was very little help. And the doctors, general practitioners, were not a lot of help, and it was quite hard to then get referred on, to other things. So it's I can kind of
Well, it's even worse for you, someone like your wife. I've actually got a book in front of me, and I don't know if you're going to use the visual, but it's called The Complete Guide to POI, which is premature ovarian insufficiency in early menopause. And it's written by 2 female doctors in the UK. And it's literally the Bible for women who go through early menopause. And that's considered to be under the age of 40. And it's not considered to be a natural life transition. In that situation, those women need medical help. It's a condition that they need help with, because the supportive element of their hormones just not being there, like not having a period anymore, not having the supportive hormones, means that they need support until the natural age of menopause at least, right? So, and that's 1 in 100 women struggle with that, and women in menopause, like regular normal menopause, don't get the help. So women in premature menopause definitely don't get it, right?
Well, that's it. I mean, it took her a good few years just to get that established. I mean, it was a bit of a headache, but now she's pretty good now. But let's go into something a little bit basic for you, but it won't be maybe basic for a lot of people listening. So if we talk about just how the 3 phases, if you like, of the menopause start and how they link together. Is it possible just to put it into a few words for us?
It's there is 3 phases, and I think most people think of menopause as just one thing, but it's not. It's a definite transition, and in fact, perimenopause medically is known as the menopause transition, and that can start for most women from their late 30s until their 50s. On an average, it lasts an average of 7 to 10 years. And essentially, estrogen and progesterone are the 2 main players. There's other hormones within the spectrum that we're talking about, but the 2 main players are, I think you say estrogen in the UK. I'm really now American when I say estrogen.
You are, aren't you?
Yeah, whatever. You're just going to have to get over yourself, right? So, oh my God. It's like this when I speak to my family every week. They're like, oh, you're so Canadian, or whatever. So yeah, estrogen and progesterone now are 2 main players in the conversation. And so progesterone falls in like a slide manner, like it's very linear, it just drops. But estrogen falls in almost like a roller coaster. It fluctuates up and down, and it's very unpredictable. There's no rhyme or reason to what's going on with your estrogen. And like I said, this is called the perimenopause phase, and this is when most women will be symptomatic, and it usually is symptomatic because of this fluctuation of the estrogen in our system. And one woman might wake up in their early 40s struggling with migraines or depression or joint pain, but then later on in the transition might have completely different symptoms, like, I don't know, like irritable bowel or hot flashes. There's a spectrum of symptoms. We know there's at least 34. I mean, whoever you speak to, it can be up to 50, 60. And not all of them make sense because they don't look like typical PMS type symptoms. Right. And our brain is impacted by perimenopause. So the structure of our brain changes, and they're probably the most impactful symptoms that women have. So when our brain changes, we have vasomotor symptoms, which is the thermoregulatory side of our brain, the hot flashes, cold flashes, night sweats, and with that usually comes insomnia. Sleep issues are massive. Chronic fatigue, because our energy centers sort of starts in the brain, and that's hugely impacted. So it's the type of chronic fatigue that's like bone deep. You can't sleep off, you can't take a nap, and you've got to be super respectful about your body when you're feeling like that. Like, you can't just keep pushing through. And then other things like anxiety, depression, brain fog, the whole cognitive side of not remembering words and people's names is quite scary, because a lot of women might feel like they're going to get Alzheimer's because of it. But it's been shown that this is actually just the brain changing, and it usually rebounds and adapts post-menopause. And so these changes are usually a transition. And so that's the perimenopause phase. And the average age in the UK is 51 for women to go through menopause itself, and
Right.
that's sometimes younger for like Black women of color or of different ethnicities, right? So we need to know that it's just an average. For example, I went through full menopause age 48, and that's a retrospective. It's almost like a timestamp where you can look back and say, it's been 12 months since I've had a menstrual cycle, therefore I am menopausal. And there's a marching band comes down the street and fireworks go off, and it's amazing. and then everything past that time is considered to be either you can say menopausal or in post-menopause. They're, interchangeable. And the only difference is that you're in a new playing field with this low level of female hormones. Your body still does produce a very low level, not a huge amount, not significant. And the body has the ability to adapt to this like new playing field. Most women's symptoms will subside in the 3 to 5 years post-menopause. Some women still will have symptoms, and there's no need for any woman to struggle. And we're going to talk about options for them for sure. But this is when when MRI scans have shown that the brain adapts and rebounds. And I've had a brain scan, and mine's big, fat, and juicy again, which is really nice because it didn't feel like that in perimenopause. And that's quite typical that they see. And then the other thing that's really important is to let women know that this is an opportunity for them. So when we're going through the menopause transition to post-menopause, there's some real physiological changes happen that mean that we need to start taking control of our health. And for people like us in the fitness industry, these women are our clients. These are the main clients we have, right? Between 45 and 60, say, maybe 40 to 60. They've got more disposable income. They care about their health. They're coming to the gym more because they feel like it's a more welcoming place than ever. We've seen this change happen, but they need the support through this time. And then post-menopause, we know that there are higher health risk of things like cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, for sure, and sarcopenia, which you know all about. It's accelerated somewhat through menopause. Things like being more prone to being insulin resistant, so the threat of diabetes is there, etc., etc. All of the health risks that we know are there are exacerbated through menopause. But I really like to just caveat that by saying it doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? And I think that when I listen to the message in the UK, it's like, you're going to go through menopause and get dementia and you're all going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, oh God, stop, would you? Like, there's so much we can do. There's so much we can do to help our female clients through this time.
Yeah, so the time frame then from, say, on average, I appreciate there's a lot of factors in there, but on average, so it could be 7 to 10 years from peri to full menopause, if you like, and then that would then how long would that period of menopause into post-menopause last? Is it quite a sudden drop when the menopause are reached, or is it a gradual kind of?
And it's going to be gradual, but it really just it's really interesting because every woman goes through this in an individual way. Your wife can attest to that, right? But they say the 3 to 5 year window because they've got data to show that the hormones stabilize sort of in that 3 to 5 year window, and most symptoms die down then. So for example, I'll use myself as an example. I definitely was in perimenopause age 42, but if I was truthful, it was probably about the age of 40, because you look back and go, I could see changes then, but they became really problematic at the age of 42, and I was fully menopausal by 48, and then I started feeling really almost like myself again by the age of 50. And I think that's sort of like a good example of how it can look.
Okay, brilliant. So I know it's kind of a controversial topic still in the UK. I don't know whether it's a bit more accepted out in Canada, but HRT, I mean, what are the thoughts on that now? Because I know it was, she had such mixed signals. Speaking again about my wife, one doctor said that it increased the chance of all sorts of conditions, that she should really think about that before to going on to HRT. And I mean, what's the general consensus now with replacement therapy?
And what's really interesting is there is a consensus, there's a medical consensus. So anytime I talk about this, I talk about it from the view of the British Menopause Society, which actually matches that of all menopause societies around the world. Also the RCOG, which is the Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and the Endocrine Society all agree on this. So it's really interesting. So the background and why doctors are nervous is in 2002, there was a study called the WHI, which is a women's health initiative in the US, that said that taking hormone therapy caused breast cancer. And they had these headline news in the New York Times, and doctors just stopped prescribing. Like, there was a massive drop off of women who were on hormone therapy. And over the years after that, the data was reviewed and it was retracted. And it was retracted because they knew that the participants were all over the age of 60, and some of them already had comorbidities as well, and also a higher risk of breast cancer anyway, because when you're a woman and you're older, you're at a higher risk of breast cancer. And they couldn't find the data. And overweight, all of the other comorbidities as well. And so now we know that, and the statement from all the medical organizations is that hormone therapy does not cause breast cancer. And here's, right. So it's a safe option. So this is what the guidelines are. If you're a woman in perimenopause, and this is there's no training for doctors at all. The BMS actually do training for doctors, but there's a huge knowledge gap. Doctors don't know what they don't know. They don't get taught this in medical school, unfortunately. But if you're a perimenopausal woman and you present over the age of 45 with symptoms, you can be treated on symptoms alone. There's no blood test needed. If you're between the ages of 40 and 45, that's considered to be early menopause. And so you may or may not rule other things out. So blood work might happen. Hormone replacement therapy, which is actually called hormone therapy everywhere else in the world, because you're not really replacing your hormones, you're just adding some back. It's not to the high levels you previously were. Hormone therapy is the first line treatment option for most women. That's what we know, and it's indicated for the vasomotor symptoms, which are your hot flashes, night sweats, and etc., which can help with insomnia. It's indicated for genitourinary symptoms of menopause, which is like the vaginal atrophy and all of the things that come with losing estrogen. Estrogen is in almost every system of our body, and so we feel it in every element of our body, which is why the symptoms make no sense. And it can also be helped for those who are at risk of osteoporosis. They're the three things it can be indicated for. Now, practitioners who give out hormone therapy definitely see benefits in other areas, like in maybe brain fog and maybe depression, anxiety, but it's not indicated for that. And what I see in the UK is like, this is what hormone therapy is for, and the British Menopause Society are very clear that, one, it's not to be used for disease prevention because we just don't have enough data, and it can be used for symptoms, and the symptoms can be within a 10-year window of menopause. And so this is really good for women who are through menopause and are still getting symptoms. As long as they approach their doctor within the 10 years, it's been shown to be okay. Right. But then there's the other side of the story, and I do feel like hormone therapy I don't know how to say this. I'm just going to say it then. In the UK, it's like, if you don't take hormone therapy, then you're doomed. That's sort of what I see looking at the conversation. But what we do know is that there's some women that can never take hormone therapy, right? So there's those that maybe have had breast cancer, so there's a contraindication. So you would never give an estrogen receptor hormone therapy to someone who's got hormone receptive breast cancer. Like that's what the menopause societies say.
You're feeding it, basically, aren't you?
Yeah, and then there's some women that choose never to want to take it, right? We have to respect every woman. So some women just don't want to take hormones, right? And then there's people, and I fall into this category, that were really struggled and wanted to take hormone therapy. And the minute I went on it, my symptoms got worse, to the point it was like suicidal thoughts and stuff. And throughout my life, I've been hormone sensitive, and it's a known thing. And so we have to look at every woman individually. And there are also non-hormonal pharmaceutical options, especially for those women that say their oncologist has said you can't take hormone therapy. Well, the British Menopause Society have a whole list of other medications that can help with some of the symptoms. So I think like we really have to bring the conversation back to the middle, where yes, hormone therapy can be a game changer for so many women, but not for all women. That's all I would say.
Interesting. Yeah, because you're right, it is almost a standard. It's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, go on HRT. It's still kind of seen as that in the UK quite a bit, I think. If you're not on HRT, it's kind of more of a question of why. And that's from what
Why? And I've heard the message in the UK, it should be an opt-out, not an opt-in issue. And
Yeah.
I sort of agree with that in one respect, because women are going to their doctors and they're not given the option of having the conversation, right? So the opt-in isn't even there. But on the other side of it, we shouldn't just be saying all women should be on hormone therapy, because it misses out a big part of the population, and I think it's unfair. And I see and I hear women in this massive community I've got saying, why is it always about hormones? Don't other things matter? And yes, they do. Like we're 360 beings, right? We know the importance of our lifestyle as well. If you're on hormone therapy and you're smoking a pack of fags every night and drinking a bottle of wine,
yeah,
you're not going to get the benefits of it, for sure. And so I think just having a more reasonable conversation shouldn't be like radical, but I feel like it sometimes is.
Yeah, no, dead right. One of the things I'd like to ask you, or ask your opinion of, really, is there's more and more people looking at kind of supplementing with testosterone as well, as well as the progesterone, estrogen. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard quite a few people asking about it, the gel and that kind of thing. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and again, these aren't really my thoughts. This is what the Menopause Society say.
Well,
And
right,
so
even better.
and so what's interesting, I don't know if women realize this, is testosterone will convert to estrogen as well. So even women who can't take hormone therapy want to try testosterone, it might not feel okay for them. And it's indicated, I think globally actually, for low libido. But libido is one of those really difficult conversations, because it's multifaceted. It's not just about like your sex hormones, it's about everything, your whole approach to having sex and relationships, etc. Dr. Kelly Casperson's a great person to talk to on that. She's like a sexual health expert. And so testosterone is indicated for that. But I see women in my Facebook group saying, oh, I just want to try testosterone, so I lied to my doctor saying I had low libido to get it, because I've heard it's really good for brain fog, and I've heard it's really good for bone health. And so my view on this is that the lead investigator on this is Dr. Susan Davis from Australia. She's running research on testosterone, and her stance is that, yes, it's been shown to help with libido. We don't know enough about brain fog or bone health to make the claim that it can do that. And it shouldn't be indicated for that. Whether or not a woman takes it and it improves her bone health, I mean, that might be one of the benefits for it, but it's just not what it's indicated for. And I know that women get really emotional. I shouldn't say it like that. I don't mean that, but I mean, because they're personally invested in doing it and they think it's a life change. Well, maybe it was, and I'm really happy for the women that it works for. But it's just not what we're supposed to prescribe it for. But what is really frustrating is for those that it works for, there isn't a female like dosage out there. So doctors might be reluctant to prescribe it. I know over here, I actually was given it by my doctor. He was quite progressive. And it was an androgel, which is like the male formula. And I just had to put like a microdose on. And so it's not exact science, essentially. And again, for me, it didn't work because I got a migraine within 2 days. It lasted for 2 weeks. Some people it doesn't work for. But I think what to me it says is that we just need more studies on this. We need more information, because the way I look at it is, we know some things work, so why don't we start with those, right? And the idea is, with testosterone, you should be on hormone therapy for a reasonable amount of time. And if that doesn't work, then you can consider adding it. There's no way you should go to your doctor and just say, can I have testosterone, without exploring all of the knowns. That's how it's supposed to be prescribed.
Well, that makes sense, because I think the doctors are quite they're quite reserved on handing that out, willy-nilly anyway, because it's, from what I've heard from discussions of through just on the grapevine kind of thing, it's very difficult to actually get through a doctor anyway, and that would make sense for that, because it's the Wild West, really, isn't it? Because it's
the Wild West of hormones, It's crazy. And, just to add on to that, I don't know if this happens in the UK, but in the US, you can get unregulated hormones. You get them everywhere. But the testosterone pellets over here are massive, especially in America, where they insert a pellet into your buttock and it's there for like 3 months. And once it's in, it's in. You have to put up with it. And they're uber high dosage, and women usually feel quite good on them if they tolerate them, because it's a steroid, right? Of course, it makes you feel like good. But the problem is that these uber high doses do have side effects. So the women are presenting with voice changes that are irreversible, male pattern balding, acne, excess hair on their body. And so it's not like a benign hormone, right? And so I think women just need to know that, take it seriously, have a serious conversation if you can find a doctor that'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, that's half the problem, I think. So going back to exercise a little bit now. So is there other particular types of exercise that you found were really effective at helping with some of these symptoms? I mean, I know what's really interesting is you're very pro weight training for women, which is great, because I train a lot of women. I use weight training with all of them, and they all love it. Well, there's, like I say, 90% of people that I train, who I bring weight training into, really enjoy it. So is there anything that you found, again, use the science by all means, that you found works best for that kind of thing?
Oh, it's a really great question, and one of my favorites. And there's two parts to it. First of all, it's like, how do you deal with exercising and doing any type of even weight training when you just feel like a bag of crap, right? When you're like a dirty dish rag and you can't get off the sofa to make a cup of tea. But what's the most appropriate exercise, or what's the most beneficial? And so first of all, I would just go to, like, how do you work out when you don't feel like it? And I pinned this on my Instagram page at the top, because there were so many women asking me this all the time. And I sort of use this scale of 1 to 10 of like.
I've read that. I thought it was really interesting.
But it can apply to any part of our life, right, Lee? It doesn't
Absolutely.
really have to just, because I think it's how we train as coaches. If a woman comes in and you can just look at her face and know that it's not the day, you could say to her, hey, do you want to just work on some biomechanics today? Do you feel like just going through the motions with, like, maybe like a PVC like pole or a dowel, just to like see how your deadlift looks? Band work. And usually you can sort of gauge if they're, and sometimes when you do a little bit of a workout, you're like, I think I can do it now. And other times it's like, I don't have it today. And so it literally was this structured flexibility, like this idea that you have an idea of what you're going to do, but you're just going to adapt. And I think that women don't allow ourselves any give. And so it's like, we've woke up, we've decided we're going to do a 45-minute HIIT class down the road at the local gym, and I've got to do it because it's only on a Monday and Wednesday. And afterwards they feel depleted and it takes days to recover. Well, chances are, if you didn't feel like doing it, but you should have maybe adapted your workout. And so anyway, but moving on from that, if there was a hierarchy, strength training would be at the top, along with some cardiovascular work, of course, because we know we need to protect our heart, and it's Heart Health Month, of course, around the world. And so strength training, we know about the rapid decline of bone health and muscle health, the musculoskeletal system. So it happens with age, it happens with being sedentary, and then it's accelerated through menopause. And so a lot of women feel nervous about weight training, and it usually takes like a kind, compassionate coach to say, you're not going to hurt yourself. I've done this for years. I know how to help you, but not everybody has the funds, and especially at this stage of our lives, like with the economy the way it is, and everyone's struggling. But how do you start exercising when you don't know where to start, right? I have resources, you have resources, there's things out there. In my book, there's a 12-week program that I sort of wrote for women that was just like, this is sort of what it looks like. You can try this and see how it feels. Because we know that the best stimulus for improving bone health is strength training. It creates those increased osteoblasts that like really help with the tensile strength of the bone. And of course, hanging on to any lean muscle that we have is imperative for just our overall long-term health. And I think women will be like, well, I don't have any muscle. I've just got these like wobbly bits of fat. Well, you do.
You do. It's a bit deeper.
It's a bit deeper. And if you didn't, you'd be like Mr. Blobby, right? You'd be falling all over the place, right? So, and so I think that just like saying to women that, we know our seniors, and we're talking just women over 60, and for me that's only like 8 years away, like that our seniors over 60 women, the risk of falling is one of the things that takes us to the ER. The risk of breaking our bone is the thing that takes us to the ER. And actually breaking a hip, and there's got a life risk with it, because we know in the US there's something like 40,000 women a year die as a result of breaking a hip bone. It's just really hard to recover from. But if you're proactive and building that strong skeletal muscular health, then you're going to be able to offset those. And then in addition to sort of like that, the benefits of that, I mean, of course, we need to work on balance, mobility, and some flexibility, but they can be incorporated into your strength training. Like, we know that some of the best ways to improve mobility is to load up your exercises, do a squat with a kettlebell. You're going to like solidify that range of motion. And so but then we also know the benefits of strength training help with our emotional and mental health, right?
Definitely.
It's the endorphins, and it's actually now part of the protocol for treatment for depression and anxiety. So we know how important that is. From a confidence standpoint, we see perimenopausal women really lose a lot of belief in themselves. I don't know if you've seen that lately when they come into the gym, but it's almost like they don't think they can. And we see the potential straight away, right? But it's a belief system, right?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from the fact that, I mean, like you said earlier, it's a much more welcome environment now than it was. But it used to be, the domain of men throwing big weights around, and women would just be terrified of even going in there. And it's so nice to see that's changed around. I work in a place where it's basically small groups rather than open gym anyway. So it's a little bit more easier to handle that, and you get less of that. But and
the confidence, it's so good.
Like you said, just picking up a weight, they look at it and touch it and go, I can't lift that. And I'll say, right, let's rewind a little bit. Let's, get your position set right. Now brace yourself properly, and then now try, and then it just lifts. It's just so many times that's happened.
I don't know if you follow Bill Campbell. He's PhD, and he's just brilliant. He's one of my favorites to follow, researchers to follow. And they've studied women in the gym, and they'll go for the lighter weight because that's just like knee-jerk reaction. And I'm like, I saw you coming out of the Asda with 20 bags the other day.
Yeah.
I know you can carry more than 10 pounds, so
Definitely.
Don't give me that.
Well, this is an ongoing joke. Well, joke, but I have to take the weights off the men because they'll massively over egg what they can lift, and I'll say no way you can lift that. Take 10 kilos off each side for a start, and then with women it's right now you put 10 kilos on. Because
I'm still pounds and ounces. I left 20 years ago and we did pounds, and I can't do kilos. It kills me. But anyway, but there's a couple of other benefits as well. But we know it helps like our brain health, our heart health, our bones, and our muscles. But there's also a study that shows it helps reduce vasomotor symptoms, those hot flashes, by up to 50%.
Interesting.
They did the Swan study in the US. They did observational studies throughout cross sections of women, different ethnicities, different stages. And women that did this 12-week strength training program who were postmenopausal saw a reduction versus the cardio bunnies. We go for the ellipticals, right? That's what we do, is a safe zone. They saw a reduction of up to 50% in their vasomotor symptoms. And so it's correlated there. They don't know the mechanism, but regardless, it changes us on the cellular level. And I think that I'd love to see more strong, resilient women, like lifting more. I just think we're changing the way that aging looks, right?
Yep.
And then you probably talk about this with all your clients as well, the importance of just moving every day, like the NEAT element, right? How we just can't be sedentary. It's just so bad for us.
Especially if we've got a sedentary job. I mean, it's just, you go from sat down all day in front of a screen to coming home and sat on the sofa all day, and it's no wonder we're all in such a state. It's one of my big passions. I try to set up things with my clients where I give them a goal. It might be climbing a mountain or something. So it could be anything. It could be a 5K run. It could be just a walk. It could be anything, but just something to gear them up towards being more active, just generally, not just in those 45 minutes they're at the gym, just generally anyway. And I think
it's exactly that, right? I mean, most of us work on a computer now, and I'm do this myself, and I have to really be aware of this. But if you sat at your computer all day and then you get up and go to the gym, you're sort of missing the big picture. That's all I would say, right? Yeah.
Totally. I know it's a massive subject, and I'm not gonna kind of drill down too hard on it because everyone's got an opinion on it. But in terms of nutrition and supplementation, is there something that you found is quite important, in this whole subject?
Yeah, and actually, it's a really easy one to answer. So there isn't such a thing as a menopause diet, even though there's people
No.
selling them out there.
Yeah.
Our basic nutritional principles stand the test of time. It's hard to argue with them. Most people don't know the basic tenets of good nutrition, unfortunately. But there are some sort of nuances we need to look at through menopause, and this applies to aging too. And so women become unable to process glucose and fructose as sensitively as they did before. And so all we're talking about there is like our added sugars, and we should be looking at our added sugars anyway. But if we're, say, having like a Snickers bar or a muffin at 2 o'clock, and then we just get these massive drops in our blood sugar like afterwards, then maybe think about, if you really want the muffin, and pair it up with something like protein or fat just to stabilize that a little bit. So just looking out for those additional sugars that do, and fruit doesn't count, of course.
No.
No one got fat by eating too many apples, but whatever. But then the protein side of it really matters, again, through aging, but especially through menopause, because the process of muscle protein synthesis is impacted because of estrogen. So, you know, we strength train, so we've got the vehicle, but we need the fuel, the building blocks in the form of these amino acids. And when we're not eating enough, we're not getting the most out of our training sessions. And so I don't think women have the anabolic window that men do. You know, like, I think that, like, you know, we hear about EPOC and all of these things, and it changes all of the time. But I just think that if women can just have enough circulating protein in their body throughout the day, aiming for around 100 grams is usually a good, like, ballpark figure. And typically I find that women don't like eating a lot of protein.
No,
I don't think
it's hard work, isn't it? It's hard work.
So I just like trick myself personally. I add a little bit of unflavored whey powder to my porridge in the morning, or I'll make scrambled eggs with some cottage cheese in it, because I hate cottage cheese, but it melts and it tastes really good. And you know, like, I just find ways to add it in, and you'll feel just better in yourself in general.
Definitely.
Right?
Recovery's better, isn't it? Recovery from training is better. Everything is better. Yeah.
And then kick the booze on the head. Sorry, kick the booze if you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's exactly in line with what I was thinking myself. I've got a kind of when I get people to track, women especially, I'll have to be looking at a little bit closer at their protein, because it's just surprising how little they think they need. And sometimes when you've tracked for a week and the average daily protein is 30 grams or something, it's not unusual to see that. And it's you know, you just have to sit down with them and explain how much they actually need. Is, you know, like you said, nearer the 100, so it's 3 times that.
I think it's 1 to 2.2 grams per kilogram. So if I'm 60 kilogram, like 120, I can't eat 120. I've tried. I feel good at 100. But because I should be more near the 2.2 range, because I'm an active female. But if you're less active, you can definitely get away with less. But 30 is even under the RDA for the protein, right? It's crazy. And I think that, you know, like, women, like, will see that they've put weight on, their body compositions changes, our fat deposits change, we become more androgen. You know, our fat deposits lay more in our belly area, and it can be problematic to deal with those body image issues. And so women will go for that, Julie down the street's on keto, or she's doing intermittent fasting, and there's all of these anti-inflammatory diets out there. And I'm just like, God, honestly, if you just eat real food as often as possible, and that's doing all of those things. If you wake up in the morning and you're desperately hungry, why would you starve yourself? Why would you say, I can't eat till noon? If you really enjoy carbohydrates, which you should eat for our energy source, like, why women are scared to eat them? And so it's just got to the point where it's a minefield out there, and they're not ticking off the basics.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a fairly simple thing which has been massively overcomplicated, hasn't it? By different you know, fads, and it's no wonder that everyone's massively confused, because half the time you can't even get the experts to agree. You know, when they're talking about intermittent fasting, some doctors are you know, prescribing it and recommending it. Yeah,
doctors shouldn't be giving nutritional advice. They don't get any training at all.
No, they don't.
It's shocking.
The clue there is general, isn't it? General practitioner in the UK, anyway, as you know, it's general. They know a bit about everything, but not a lot about anything.
Yeah. And then there's people like Michael Mosley saying people should be on 800 calories a day. I just want to punch him in the
Oh
face.
yeah,
It's
I
just
know.
disgraceful.
Yeah, I totally, and I actually quite respected his stuff until he started coming out with that, and I don't know where he got that from, but anyway. So this is great. I mean, I know we're coming up to 40 minutes now, so this is bang on. I've got a couple more things just to throw your way, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So one thing I've started doing the last couple of years, and I just wonder whether you've had any joy with it or tried it, is the cold water immersion. Have you tried any of that? Because I've heard it's quite beneficial to the menopausal.
So I live in Canada. You can't see out my window right now,
I
and
know.
it's
I
like
can see snow. I can see snow. I think. Is that snow?
-50. Yeah, we had a snowstorm last night. It came through. We've had a pretty mild winter.
Right.
I taught myself to swim when I was 50. Like I've always been able to swim, but not like lengths and lengths and lengths.
Right.
And then when we moved back to Canada, my husband, who is a really good swimmer, we joined an open water swim club and we
Excellent.
swim in Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is never warm, and so I swim in a wetsuit. And the coldest I've actually done a swim, like for half an hour, was 5 degrees, and that doesn't sound cold, but it's really cold. Like you go, like you can't get your breath.
Yeah.
And so it's really so. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'd rather have a hot bubble bath every day. And so there's a guy in the UK called Nick Tiller who actually looks at cold water studies, and I really respect his work. And he's basically saying it's been overhyped and we don't know enough. We can't say it helps with the immune system. We just don't know enough now. If people like it because it makes them feel good, you go into the cold water. It's exhilarating. It's hard. You get an endorphin rush. Like, to me, there's nothing wrong with doing that if you really, really like it. And if you're someone that's struggling with hot flashes, maybe it helps you cool down a bit, right? But it's not something I think that's like overly recommended to people, because on the other side of it, the heart associations are saying, well, you just stop jumping in the cold water because people die that way, right? And so if you like it, do it. If you don't like doing it, I don't think you're missing out on stuff. And that's my current stance based on what I'm reading. I feel like it's the latest fitness fad. And actually, Nick Tiller is like saying for athletes, for recovery, it might hinder hypertrophy. So, like, and that's
the anti-inflammatory response is quite important, isn't it? So,
we need it.
it's the same with people taking anti-inflammatory drugs not long after training to stop the pain, but they're actually preventing that hypertrophy, like you said, in a lot of the cases. So,
so maybe on your rest and recovery day, like I think there's maybe but that's all I know at the moment. I don't know any more about it. So, but I'm not a fan, and I've still done it. We went to Norway in the summer, and we went north of the Arctic, and we jumped in the Arctic, but I was straight in the sauna. I was the quickest one in the sauna afterwards.
Oh, that'd be the dream for me. Is jump in a nice lake and then get in a sauna. Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Then go to Norway, because it's in every single town they have that. It's brilliant.
Excellent. No, the only reason I was asking is because I did a course before I started doing that. I did a little day course, and there was me and my friend and 40 other women. It was a massive amount of women compared to doing it, and they were all kind of, say, 40, 50 age, and I think the word had got out that it was helpful for menopause. I was just wondering whether there was anything in it.
I think as well it helps build community. I think they're an amazing bunch of women, but I don't know, the jury's out. But I love that happened to you. That's brilliant.
Right, so we know you've got a great book out there. We'll talk a bit about that, because I'm going to put all of this stuff on the show notes as well, and also the guy that you just mentioned, that might be worth getting you details of him as well. The guy just
Tiller.
Tiller was it. So tell us about your book. It sounds amazing.
So when I fell down that rabbit hole and came out with that article saying I'm pissed off and this isn't okay, I started a Facebook group. It's called Menopausing So Hard. Actually, when Davina issued her book and trademarked the word menopausing, all my group were like, you've had a group for like 5 years now and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's fine. Nobody owns words, I don't believe. But
no.
Anyway, so I think there's like 17,000. It's a complete community in there. And I was listening to people talking all the time. And I was like saying to them, this is what it is. This is what it isn't. And I was like, it was sound bites that didn't stick. And that like doing a podcast is evergreen and it's always there for people to listen to. But social media sucks for that because people may or may not see it. They may or may not read your posts. And so I moved to Houston for 4 years. My husband's work took me there. And I'd left all my clients. I didn't want to do online training. And I just thought, what should I do? And I thought, I have all of these articles I've written. I have all of this data. And now I've got all of these contacts. I'd made friends with doctors because I don't cross any lines. I don't tell women they should or shouldn't do anything. I just talk from the medical consensus. And so I pulled a book together. And it was really fun to write, actually. I actually really enjoyed it. I took on a writing coach to help me say you have to have chapter 1 done by here and stuff. And then nobody wanted it because this is now like 4 years ago, and I had a Canadian agent and she's like, nobody's interested. And she said, this book's so helpful, Amanda, like I just want everyone to read it. She's a menopausal woman, right? And nobody wanted it. And I just was like, well, you can all go fuck yourself then, because I've written a book. And I didn't even want to self-publish because I just thought that was just I didn't want to do that part of the work, if I was honest. And then at a book fair one time, this independent publisher in Canada, the largest independent publisher, saw it and said, we really like this. Our CEO is a menopausal woman and she's tired of not seeing enough menopausal books. Can we jump on a video call? And I was like, if you get me on a video call, I can sell coals to Newcastle, literally. And so that was what happened. And it's been a bestseller since then, like in my category, I might add. And so it's got legs. It's now in its 2.5 years, and it's like an evergreen thing. And so it's like your best mate's guide to menopause. So the first part of the book is all about what menopause is, like what the treatment options are, how to speak to your doctor. And then there's a couple of things. One's called my dry vagina or something, and I wanted to call it let's not beat about the bush, but they did but they were like, isn't it about more than just the bush? And I'm like, okay, fine. It was really funny. And then why am I so bloody fat is a just one chapter on its own. I actually don't talk about weight loss in the book because it's not something I really enjoy talking about, but I talk about the education. It's an educational book. And so the second part of the book is solution driven. You've got exercise, the best way to move, which is what we've just spoken about, nutrition, how to eat and what to eat, because we know that like understanding like those habitual habits around food are important. Stress and sleep, like calm the fuck down type thing. And then the last one is called Shift Happens, How to Think. And I worked with a psychologist on this because, that we were talking about women feeling lost and confused and they don't know the way forward and they're leaving work and leaving marriages and all sorts of things are happening. And this is just a chapter that talks about how we sort of bring that all back and you put worth back in yourself, because women are worthy and they lose that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. Thank you very much. So again, for those listening, I'm going to put all this in the show notes as well. So there'll be some links there to you, and I'll get your social media links and handles as well off you, and I'll put those in as well. This has been fascinating. Thank you very much. Let's I'll sign off there, and we'll have a little chat afterwards. So I'll just stop the recording there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode of Mature Muscle, please subscribe and find us on most social media. Until next time, stay shredded.